You have to unmute yourself. You're muted.
There you go. How you doing?
Can I hear you?
Can you hear me? Testing one. I did a mic test before. Let me refresh, see what happens.
I got you. I got you.
Right? Okay.
I got going live on the air. You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com. Broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in beautiful Northport, Florida. I have a very special guest in the house, but a couple reminders here first. I started my new podcast on Thursday nights from 6:30 to 7:23-ish. It is a great little show. We're working some kinks out, but it's about songwriters around the globe, actually. And I've got several lined up to come on each week already. And, the big thing with that is to really try to introduce Nashville to our local songwriters and maybe even get some songwriting events happening and get some things going that way out into the community radio world. So if you could join us on Thursday for Songwriters Souls, you can see us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, along with Real Talk Radio 97.5 FM. And Peter Bartalotta's in the house today. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing, John?
I'm
Hello,
good.
everybody.
Just a lot going on and craziness happening out here in our little town of Northport. Which it just happens to be 82,000 strong and probably the third largest landmass city in the state.
Yeah, and growing.
And growing. And you know what? The biggest part of growing, would you say that the more people who got involved as far as the citizens of Northport, would you say that would be a good idea for such a young town?
Oh, I think now is the time to get involved. I've met with a number of the government leaders, and there's such a positive, can-do approach and attitude, an openness to creative, positive ideas. I also just came out of a commission meeting last week that was a shame that people don't show any respect for the elected leaders, and all the negatives that people spout out there, I really believe those people are the minority, because I speak to people every day, and all I hear about is what is the potential for Northport. And it was fun coming out of the meeting I had last week with some of the elected officials. Their attitude is they're embracing those ideas. They're embracing the opportunities that are coming before us, and they're doing the tough planning that's required to make those opportunities become a reality. It's not like the days of old. You remember Vision Northport. We had tons of ideas. I mean, really good ideas that were well thought out, that had budgets to them, that had architectural renderings, floor plans, site plans. I mean, it was amazing what the local residents did. Everything from an incubator to a restaurant incubator to an equestrian facility to be able to house world-class equestrian shows and festivals, to town centers and entertainment zones. Just really cool ideas with a lot of detail to them. But the ability for the government to embrace it at that time the timing wasn't right. I really believe the timing is right now.
Well, and I'm gonna bring a name up to you, and I want you to. I'm gonna let you introduce the name. I'm just gonna give the position. What value does a city manager bring to a young town that needs a visionary look?
I think that is probably the key element. And I think we have it in Jerome. I'll bring the name up if that's what you're saying.
That's what I want. That's okay.
Um, Jerome he's young. He's got a phenomenal can-do attitude. I feel bad for him when he's attacked by people, and everybody's talking about transparency this and transparency that, and the a lot of people don't realize this. We have a sunshine law in this state that it's almost impossible for elected officials from the county level on down to do anything that is not openly transparent. The state government does; they're not governed by the same rules they created, but it's really tough. And as a resident of Northport, I want to see my city move forward. I'd hate to live in a city that's the most transparent city in the United States of America, but our taxes on a quarter acre lot are running us $15,000-$20,000 a year, and that's where we're headed. People get up and they criticize. Come to me with solutions. If you want to define the problem, that's great. Define it so that we're all on the same page. But to come out and criticize with no recommendations, with no positive approaches to the problem, that turns me off, and I think it turns off most people. And you're going to wind up losing a lot of good people because they weigh you down. But they don't weigh me down. I've been doing this for how long now, John? It's got to be going on 30 years.
Well, you're battle tested.
That's for sure. But
go ahead.
There's just some great ideas, and look at what they're doing right now with ULDC. They're grappling problems that we should have handled 15, 20 years ago. Price Boulevard, Warm Mineral Springs, the ULDC codes. All of that from a government standpoint, and it took me a while to understand and appreciate it, that has to be in place for the good things to happen. And right now we've got the best of both worlds, I think. You just got to get some people working who believe that the city has a future, that don't want to see their taxes go through the roof, and want to have a city that they're proud of and that they can raise their kids in, and that their kids will come back. I'm blessed. All my children lived in Northport. My daughter she left only recently, but I've got 3 kids that are still here. I've got grandkids that are here. I've got great grandchildren living in this town. And I feel good because I think I did play somewhat of a role in moving it in directions. So I'm proud of Northport, and anybody who knows me will attest to that, I think. And I want to make it a place where my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids can live and prosper and have a good time.
I've talked to Jerome a couple times, and I do want to say something as far as maybe even a public notice alert that there are projects that a city manager gets deemed to do, and then there are citizens who aren't wise enough to learn our government structure, and so they attack completely the wrong person. And so if you are that person and you think I'm coming at you, I am. Because you need to be told to educate yourself. Get on board with our government system. It is completely different than almost all over the nation right now as far as local goes. We have 5 city commissioners, and the city manager reports to them, and he has projects that they deem necessary for him to work on. I'll throw out there Warm Mineral Springs. Nothing that's going to happen at Warm Mineral Springs is going to be Jerome Fletcher pushing it through. No matter what your mind is telling you, stop and get yourself educated and learn. I
Yep.
took the phone calls. I know that this is going on. And as citizens, as great citizens of Northport, why don't we do it the right way? If you got a complaint, go to your city commissioner and start there. They are so easy to get an appointment with. And I'm going to slide it over to you real quick, Peter, because I know for a fact that you can talk to the citizens about how easy it is, not just to get in to talk to the commissioners, but at City Hall to talk to
Anybody.
Jerome Fletcher himself.
Yep.
So instead of talking behind his back or talking behind people's back, why don't you make an appointment and go get it done? And now you're dealing with face-to-face conversation, and stop hiding behind Facebook, stop
Yeah.
hiding behind social media, and act like an adult. That's all.
If you tune into last month's show, and they're online, I think, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having your opinion of what should be done, but present it in a way that's a solution-driven approach. And the last meeting we had, I walked away from that meeting saying to myself, they're not interested in a solution. They just don't want the land to be touched. They want to keep it totally rural. They don't want anything added to it, but they want the city residents to pay for it. And I'm all in favor of keeping War Mineral Springs as environmentally sensitive land. Maintain it, absolutely, but not on tax dollars. And if you look at the history, that property was purchased by the city and the county combined as an economic engine. One commissioner had a vision for Northport that was a bedroom community. And I say yes to a bedroom community if I'm a bedroom to New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas. In other words, a bedroom community means you live outside of where the businesses are. The jobs, you travel to the jobs. Well, what do we have to travel to? In Sarasota, the restaurant capital of the world. So, you can afford, you can travel over there. Waiters and waitresses in Northport was a place where they could live. Well, I just saw an article that Sarasota, City of Venice, and the city of Northport have a higher rent today than the state average. People are realizing this is the place to live. We've got Welland Park. It's growing. It's amazing what's going on over there. It's everything people have been asking for. If you haven't been there, you got to go. There's a town center there that is second to none. And there's more coming. But when you look at that history, that whole thing got turned around by one individual. Two other individuals got elected that supported that philosophy. Within 8-9 months of being on board, they rejected that commissioner that brought them on, and the city went downhill. All the good work that was done, we're just coming out of that right now. And I plead with the residents, don't let that happen again. Get qualified people elected. Get people that have got practical experience dealing with $100 million budgets, that understand how to work with a city manager. The job of the commission is not to micromanage the city manager. His job is to run the operation, day-to-day activities of the city. The commission is supposed to put together the vision and votes on the policies. And that's it. And of course they approve the budget. They are not. We got commissioners that are sitting down and questioning $1,000 budget item. And that's one of the reasons your meetings are so long. Give the guy the opportunity to do his job. If he fails, he reports to the city manager. They'll fire him. But you don't do the job for him. There's not one commissioner up there, with the possible exception of Barbara Langdon, who happens to have a bachelor's degree in city planning. It was like a long time ago, but nobody up there. And the odds are we'll never have another commissioner who's been educated on city management. What the heck are they telling the city manager how to do his job for? What it would be like, think of yourself as owning a business and your employees are telling you how to run it.
Well, and I'm gonna add this to it. I the bigger we get, the more mischievous we seem to be getting. The
Oh God, that's going
the
to kill
the reason the reason I say that is, we've got Northport Welland Park, who is Conquer and Divide. And I actually, I know that if we talk about Warm Middle Springs long enough, and we end up with it being a referendum, like there are people that want that. I clearly stated that if you're going to have it to be a referendum, you have to put it must be sold as a choice. There's several ways of looking at Warm Middle Springs, and I'm just using that as an example. If you went to Welland Park to rally their crowd, it would be real easy to convince everyone there to vote against Warm Middle Springs with one factor involved, only one: raising of the taxes. I legitimately had this conversation today, and I almost promise you, if you went around the city and you had door knockers and people really rallying around, we don't want to do anything at Warm Middle Springs in raising our millage rate. It might be the biggest turnout we ever had for an election.
Well, yeah, but the bottom line is the commission and city manager Fletcher have what's the word I'm looking for? They fell into this. I mean, Warm Middle Springs has been pushed down the road for a long time.
Correct.
Let's do it or get off the pot. This is crazy. You want to develop it, develop it. You don't want to develop it, don't develop it. Put a fence around it and leave it alone. If you want to leave it the way it was, I agree with. I have no problem with that. Just not with my tax dollars. So charge Northport residents who show a picture ID $5, and everybody else pays whatever it costs to maintain that place. Then everybody's happy. Okay. And whichever way you go, we got to get off the Warm Middle Springs topic. It goes nowhere. There's nobody presenting solutions except the city. And whatever they're coming up with, they're challenging it, and then they, so come up with your own solution, and use as the premise that it should be self-sustaining. There is no reason it shouldn't be. It's a revenue generator. Before the city and county took it over, it was in private hands. It was a private property.
It's so bad right now, though.
They did not spend $5.5 million on a piece of property to make it a park. Trust me, they did not do it for that reason. There was always an economic element to it that it would pay for itself. So if you want to keep it as a park, as long as it pays for itself, do it. Show us the way to make it pay for itself.
Legitimately.
And I mean legitimately. Don't give me these, and part of that pay for itself, take the $5.5 million and do a payback schedule of 10 years or 20 years where you make that money back. That should go into that budget. Okay, and show me how you're gonna pay the expenses on it. If you can't pay the expenses, then treat it like Little Salt Spring and put a gate around it and let the Miami University come in and do dives in it and take it out of the public view.
Well, they've already done. They've dove down there. They got everything they wanted out of that.
Yeah. So, but I mean that's also an option. So
it is, and
these people that get up and talk, and I'm a firm advocate. When people get up to talk at a city hall, at a city meeting, they should tell us whether they're a Northport resident or not. A lot of people stand up at these meetings that are not Northport residents. And for those of you that are listening, and you know who I'm talking about, owning 6 pieces of property does not make you a resident. It makes you a property owner. There's a difference. The resident has to live day in and day out with the decisions made by this commission and the city manager. A property owner doesn't. A property owner only cares about maintaining their property to a point where they can turn around and sell it and make a profit or come down here and live here someday. But they're not living through the day in and day out. So, and that's why to run for office, you need to be a Northport resident, not a property owner. You've got to live in the city. Okay, so let's find out who the people are that are raising their voices. Let them come out if they're brave enough and tell us, where do you live? Are you a Sarasota County resident who lives outside of Northport? Are you a Charlotte County resident? Are you a DeSoto County resident? Do you live in California? And I can tell you, in every one of those scenarios, I know people who have stood up in front of this commission and gave them their peace of mind. And as a commissioner, you don't know where these people live. So you got to assume they're Northport residents. And in most cases, they're not. So I'd hate to see the outside world planning Northport's future.
So, with all that being said, you said we need to get off this topic. And I get why you said that, but I want to add this into the topic. If you're going to talk about a topic, have a solution for any topic.
I agree.
What I'm tired of, and trust me, it's the tiredness is just not on my shoulders. It's not just with Peter. It's just not with some commissioners. The tiredness is saying the same thing over and over and over because it might happen. Well, I might hit the lottery. I can't bank on it. But if I do, I'll throw some money at Warm Mill Springs.
There you go. Well, let's do this. Let's get people talking. Let's get people talking. Let's get together. Let's talk about what do you want to see in Northport? What would you like? Paint your own picture of what Northport's going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What is the one thing we need? Okay. And, when we did that, we were pulling 100 people to a monthly meeting. 100 people were showing up. And this, by the way, is when the population, I don't think, was 25,000. Okay. At 82,000, it's even more. But everybody has an idea about what they want to see in their city. Let's hear about those. Let's hear those ideas. Let's work together to identify the ideas that we can do something about, and then let's go out and do it. And I think we've got a friendly commission right now and a city manager who would embrace that.
And embrace is a completely different word from what we had before. I think we were a group that had the respect of community leaders. I think that worked us forward a lot of ways with them. But there's always a component that goes with being a city leader, being in a group that leads, and understanding the direction of which the city has to go to meet the need and the goal. And can you talk about how this style of group, of this setting, actually can inspire people to know why they should vote?
Okay.
Man, I asked you a tough question. Man, I've never seen you do that before.
It's kind of like these two pieces. Let me see if I can put them together. There was a young lady that came to one of the first Vision Northport meetings, and we would ask the people, what would you like to see? And she had a concept of a an environmental center. See, counter to what people believe, everybody cares about the environment. We all do. I want to see it preserved as best as possible. But I also want to be able to afford to be able to live here. Okay? So there's a balance. And she had about 12 people sat at her table to discuss it. And then they scheduled a meeting. I'll never forget it, at Perkins. And I showed up, she showed up, and one other person showed up. And she was so disappointed. And I said, "What's the problem?" She goes, "Nobody came." I said, 3 people are here. That's the beginning. You know, I say that story because when it comes to voting, people think it's a simple process. It's not. If you don't have the time to look at who's running, to look at what they're going to bring to the table, and to see if what they're talking about fits your vision of Northport, then reach out to somebody you know and ask them what they think. Not everybody can know everything. Those of us that do get involved in the political side, we begin to believe our own BS. We begin to believe everybody thinks and knows what we know. Most don't. So reach out to somebody you know and get involved. What I think was good about Vision Northport is it created a forum for dialogue. It was a place where people felt safe talking about what they would want to see. And a lot of people they're afraid to say their idea because they think it's silly. We had one woman who got up and talked about an equestrian center. And you'd think it was silly, but by the time it was done, this project took months. But we had schematics, we had different drawings of what would be there, and the horse circles, whatever they call those things. And then I found out Ohio has a huge festival every year that brings over 100,000 people. That's a lot of money coming into the city. That's a lot of revenue. And we've got tons of land that we can maybe allocate. Why isn't Northport got the Sarasota County Fairgrounds? The Robot Center is like ridiculous where the county fairgrounds are now. It's in the middle of town. You can't get in. If there's something going on there, it blocks up, Fruitville? Blocks up the whole road. So so a lot of ideas, and it may sound stupid, but when you start talking to people about it, it's wow. It's cool. It's got some neat elements to it. I brought people out. I used to give tours. I still do. And one woman who's the wife of a dear friend of mine is an equestrian. And when she saw the estates, she went crazy. She said, "I can't believe we have this kind of property here in Northport, bordering the Carlton Preserve. You can ride a horse out there for days. It's like 30,000 acres or something. It's huge." Okay. She says, "I have to travel to Ocala to get anything close to what you've got here." So
best
it's absolutely a well-kept secret. Northport is a very unique city with some really good attributes. It's the only city in the state of Florida that has a state park in its city limits. It's one of the few cities, if not the only city, that has agricultural zoning in the city limits. Usually agricultural zoning is in the unincorporated area. It's outside, but this is inside the city. Any lifestyle you want, from $1 million homes to, inexpensive housing, is right here in Northport. As Wellham Park grows and we get the town center building up, what it's got over there, you're going to see other pieces like that on the other parts of town. It's all here. This is going to be a city that is truly a futuristic type of city that a lot of people are going to want to live here. And guess what, folks? The people who are moving here, they see that vision. They see that potential. That's why we're the second fastest growing city in the United States of America. If you don't see it, talk to somebody who's not negative, who's not criticizing everything. And a simple way to get answers is ask them, what do they see the future of Northport? And if they start talking to you about the commissioners need to become more transparent, or this or needs to that, and we got to change it, they're the wrong people to be talking to. Talk to the new residents moving in. Find people who are positive. There's more of them than there are negative. And it's time for them to stand up, let their voices be heard, encourage this commission, encourage the city manager, encourage the staff to move forward, to get bold, and make Northport everything that's possible that it can be. Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did.
And then vote.
And
then vote.
and
then
vote.
vote. Get that to happen.
And I think the combination of the two is when you are legitimately more involved, you're more informed on how you would vote. And it gives you a little more insight. And I think it gives you that edge a lot of times that people need. And I'm not saying you can't be informed and you can't learn and you can't pay attention by listening to shows like this and making a determination, by listening to other shows, by reading articles, by understanding what's happening in the real world.
Yep.
But
let me speak to that for a minute, because you're bringing up a great point. In the real world, when you get into business and you get into people that are really on the cutting edge, they have, in one form or another, what I call kitchen cabinets. They're people who are outside of their normal day in and day out. They're people that have different ideas. And we're living in a country right now that's dividing us right down the middle, where you don't want to talk to people, don't want to talk to somebody if they have a different political belief than they do. I want to talk to those people. I want to hear what your thoughts are. How am I going to learn anything new? If you stay in the same room, listen to the same people, you're going to wind up believing that. We used to call that drinking the Kool-Aid. You start to believe your own BS because you're not getting any outside influence. You're just talking to people who share your beliefs. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to keep walking out of those rooms saying, boy, am I good. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Boy, am I smart. Boy, everybody agrees with me. No, they don't. The three people you're talking to agree with you. Get outside on the real street, stand in front of Walmart, and ask everybody who comes out of Walmart the question you ask your three friends. I'll bet you're going to find a different answer.
I agree. I agree.
Expose yourself. Get out there. Get involved. And that's a way of getting involved. It's not complex. You don't have to be super duper involved, but just reach out to people who have different opinions and ask them why. Why do you believe that? And sometimes it'll make sense. Sometimes it doesn't. But if anybody that knows me knows I constantly am reaching out and talking to people about what is it they believe in, what do they want. And it amazes you what the answers are. Anyway.
Well, and I think anytime that you get people involved and you get them thinking outside the box, and the communication that goes on and the conversations. When we talked about this a week ago, and I'm going to say it again today, is that groups like that we had back in the day, and everybody wants to knock what we had back in the day. I love the fact that you don't know what you're talking about when you say things like that, by the way. I think what you have to remember is, as a society, we have learned to yell, scream, holler, throw a fit, yell, call names. It happens on social media. Nobody talks to each other anymore. They basically badmouth people until they get their way, until no one talks to them again.
Yeah.
Or go ahead.
Now, I don't know who that woman was at the meeting. I don't even think she lives in Northport, that told the commissioners, you look at me when I'm talking. She was so rude. I would suggest to every commissioner, the next time she gets up to speak, read a book. Okay? And if you want to listen to her on, it's taped anyway. But when people stand up and do that, that's public. That's in the world. If somebody searches for Northport, those meetings pop up. Is that how you want your city represented? Okay? I mean, we are not made up of naysayers. We're made up of people who believe our slogan, we can achieve anything. Okay? What happened to that? The minority is speaking up, and the majority that believes in achieving things isn't speaking up. We need to get that group activated. And I recommend it to commissioners, if people are going to be rude when they get up and speak in public, the commissioners should turn their back on them. Of course, they're going to wind up getting all sorts of bad press, and the naysayers and the newspapers will all say negative things about them. But the truth is, you don't get anything done by screaming at people.
Well, you don't, and I've thought
You
about
hurt
that.
my city. You hurt my city.
And I thought about that in several different lights, but I don't know that I'm a fan of that. And here's why. If the city commissioners are holding a decorum at the standard that their expectations are, I think they hold their ground with that. Now, are they going to take the abuse? Listen, assholes are going to be assholes. And that's how I look at it. I'll just call it like it is. You know, the beauty in community radio is I don't get censored like that. So, you know, when you're talking about the definition of a person, it's your actions in front of people, and it's your actions when you're not in front of people. And the truth of the matter is, social media platforms, while you think you're not in front of people, Facebook bullying has got to stop.
Yeah.
It's ironic. It's ironic how the hypocritical people who believe that Facebook bullying doesn't exist for them because they're not bullies, but yet the first time something happens at a high school about a bullying situation, they're the first ones out there protesting to get the bullying stopped.
But, you know, John, I agree with you. But, you know, keep in mind, when people do this, they're putting Northport in a bad light. People who are thinking about moving here, people who are thinking about opening a business here, they look at this, and people who are thinking about developing something, they look at it and they say, I don't know if I want to be in a city like that. And if you want to keep your taxes down, we need to build on the residents and we need to build on businesses. I'm sorry, you may not like it, but it's one or the other. And if you see that happening, write a note to the clerk for the next commission meeting and make a statement on an email that says, I did not appreciate the person who was bad-mouthing our city, period.
That's a good
Because
idea.
they read that into the record. And if 100 people did that, you know, maybe these people would start standing up and talking about possibilities rather than, you know, tearing things apart. I got so angry. I mean, I just, it hurts. I get angry to see that happening. My city, that's your city they're talking about.
Yep, I agree. And you know, when you go through what we went through with Vision Northport, it was not easy to build it. It was one piece at a time. It was putting people in the right place. It was getting the acknowledgement from the city to take us seriously, to get them to embrace what we were doing and bring bigwigs from Sarasota County, from the city of Sarasota in and give presentations to our group. I have to tell you that I think that was the most informed group of voters that we've ever had on the rolls, because every one of us were putting hours into projects that we would have known nothing about.
You're right. And to prove that, I forget what year it was, but it was the biggest turnout ever for a debate. They took up the entire commission chambers and room 240 and the lobby. There were over 300 people attended that debate. So those are engaged residents. And again, the population, I don't think was more than 20, 25,000 people at the time. So you're right. There was an engaged voter and an informed voter.
It was, and there, I for years now, I've heard people mock it. I've heard people downplay it. I've heard people say things, and they're just not smart. They're not educated on what happened. They knock it because they can, and they knock it because maybe there was something in there, a component of something that they didn't agree with.
Yep.
But I wish I could. In fact, I'm going to say it. The R and the D thing right now, it sucks, because when it comes down to the language that's being spewed from the far left and the far right, it's total insanity. Because the last time I checked, if we go far right or far left on any topic, the end result is a boomerang effect.
That's right.
And so what you get is mass decision making on such a large scale that the only thing that happens for the next 10 or 15 years is the boomerang keeps going back and forth.
Right. And that's what happened to us. I always say to people, I believe the voters are smart. I really do. I don't care what your education is. I don't care how involved you are. I don't care how much you know or how much you don't know. Ask 4 questions of a candidate. Question number 1, what are you going to do? Simple. Number 2, how are you going to do it? That's usually where you start seeing cracks in the armor. Number 3, what resources will you need to get that done? And number 4, who do you know that you can reach out to for help? And it amazes me. Question 2, the how, it starts to fall apart at that level. So we get told a lot of things, and it doesn't come to pass because the people who are saying they're going to do something haven't got the foggiest idea about how to get it done. And if they can answer those 4 questions and make sense to you, then you talk for a minute. I got to take this.
All right. So this is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio 97.5 FM and KDWRadio.com. We're talking about citizens and citizens groups. And I will tell you that we need citizen groups. We need citizens participation. We need the contacts out into the real working world of Northport. We have a very, very large community here in Northport that drives out of town to go to work, and having them be part of a process is difficult because a lot of them drive away to go to work. We have 5 middle schools that dump into 5 elementary schools that dump into 2 middle schools that really should be dumping into 2 high schools, maybe 3. Keeping that in mind, getting information out to these hardworking individuals that have families on top of it, and then expecting them to be engaged and understand every single topic so they know what's going on in their city, to their city, and possibly to their tax dollars and tax rate increase without knowledge. Think about that. Our expectation as a city, if we didn't have groups driving information out and getting this information to them, we're actually suppressing voters.
Yes, we are.
And because we are, as a city, as a community, are not willing to put forth the effort for community engagement. And we're now letting 1,000 people or 2,000 people be dictators of 82,000. And I know you may not like to be called a dictator, but reverse the role.
Well, I'll tell you something. That meeting got me fired up again. You know, my wife had a double lung transplant, so I've been out of the picture for a good 4 years now.
Right.
Just kind of playing around the fringes. Well, and she's doing very well, thank you. But I think it's time to step in and start getting some things going right now. So there's some activity that I'm involved with right now about getting the masses engaged again, about showing people what Northport is all about so they can become ambassadors, for lack of a better word, and speak factually about what the city is. And that's going to be a fun, engaging program that I think we're going to have a waiting list a mile long to get into it. I think you're going to see a lot of business people from inside and outside of Northport that are good people who care, who are legitimate, who understand the right way to develop. And they're going to, I think you're going to start seeing them involved. So there's going to be a lot of movement going on that I think over the next couple of months, people will start seeing it and will want to be a part of this positive group and saying, what can I do to help? And the only thing you got to do is share with us your thoughts. That's it.
Right.
And when you see negatives and you see these people stepping up and they're pawns for the most part, you have a discussion with them, and after 2 or 3 sentences, they fall apart. There's no depth to it. Then, you know, I think we start combating it. If they want to play like that, then let's play. Let's get the positives. Let's get the good guys and the positive people talking to the negative people. And maybe some of the positive people will become negative, and maybe some of the negative people will become positive. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know another voice needs to be heard. And that's the people who believe Northport is a great place to live, a great place to raise your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. I can attest to that. And it's a place where, you know, we're missing some things without a doubt, but they're moving in the right direction for those things to come in. And, you know, surround yourself with the people that are working towards that. And I think you will get as excited about Northport as I am. And I've never been this excited. And I've always been a promoter of Northport. You know that I've been here since 1993. Population was 12,000. So I've seen it come a long way. I am so fired up right now. I can't wait to see what happens when the Northport residents start sharing their visions of Northport. When the people who are coming to Northport now in droves say that they're looking at why they came here and the potential they saw on it. And I see Robin is talking about what kind of a group we're talking about, Robin. We're talking about a group of positive people that want to sit around with other positive people, not sit around and listen to why things can't get done, but to discuss what do we have to do to get them done in the right way, people that are open to alternatives, that are open to other people's views. That's what I'm looking about. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to put that together.
And the other, I hear what you're saying with your comment to that people that are moving here know. I'm going to tell you, I actually don't think they know. I think a lot of people move here, and they don't know that Wormhole Springs exists. And the reason I know that, Robin was a valuable part of the show that I had with citizens the other day, and she is well informed. She has a plan in her head. She knows what she wants to do. She knows what she wants to see. And you know what happens is when we have open dialogue like that, where everybody got to talk. I took 5 phone calls. I literally took 5 phone calls as a radio show host, not real estate, radio. And my phone rang, and the God's honest truth, it was refreshing, not just for me, to know that people were engaged with us.
Yep.
But what was really, really refreshing is that they found out about Warm Mill Springs. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know what the conversation was all about, and they didn't care because it didn't matter to them. And that's really, I think that's imperative for all groups. I don't I know that there are groups out there that are the naysayers. I know that there's the groups out there that don't want growth at all. I love talking to those people because they're so frustrated right now because growth hasn't slowed down, and
Yep.
it's going to keep going. If you don't learn to compromise within a conversation, at some point, jumping up and down and screaming is going to get less trees. Jumping up and down is going to get more buildings. Doing all the things in the world you want to do, if you never work with anybody to get some of what you want, the answer is you get nothing. And
Yeah.
and that's just crazy to me.
And I think I answered her first question. What type of group are you talking about? Second
I think you
question,
did.
she'd like more information on it. And as it gets together, I will definitely, Robin, be in touch with you. And I've known Robin for almost as long as I've lived here, I think. And we met through Warm Mill Springs back in the Ed Ullman days.
Yeah.
It's an independent group, and I'm not spearheading it. I'm not. I'm just talking to people, and then people know what Northport's all about. That's why they're moving here. And how do you get involved with it? It'll be a place, Robin, where you can share your ideas about what you want to see, and then see if there's other people that share that. And if there is, then work together to make it happen. That's the key to this.
Read what she just said, because that she is digging at the heart of what we were doing before, because no one had their voice shut down ever in that group. Ever.
Nope. Ever.
It was crazy what happened. It was not like
I'll tell you I'm going to challenge you there. You know what got shut down? Negative people who stood up in the middle of a meeting and said, well, you can't do that, and you can't do that. People just shut them down. They said, okay, they listened, they were polite, and then it was, okay, what else? Now let's talk about what we can do. So, but there were no good ideas or bad ideas. They were just ideas. And then how do you make it happen? And that group would either die on the vine, it would get together and have a meeting and die on the vine, or it would get together and there would be multitudes of meetings and more people would get involved, and we reported each month on what was happening and how they were growing and what they were doing. And really good ideas came out of it.
We got 2 minutes left, and the truth is the first half of this show was talking about behaviors and what people should do to represent the city and represent themselves. I think a lot of times we have citizens that think because they yell, scream, and holler and throw a fit that they get their way, and that's the fastest way to turn somebody off.
And you said something important, John. I don't want to let it slip. Represent yourself, because guess what, folks? Yeah. Northport is you. You aren't Northport. Northport is you. How do you make it you? Share with us what you want. If you don't, somebody else is going to do it.
And I've enjoyed talking with Robin and Chuck and listen. There hasn't been anybody that I haven't enjoyed on my show, even if I disagree with them on 90% of what they say, because
my number, so they can call me if they want more details.
Great. And this has been a great ending to a show. There's going to be a lot more on. I will tell you that I'm working on several different shows coming up. One of which is going to be with our city manager. I'm waiting on him to get back in town, but I'm going to text him and set a time up because I did run into him last week, and for the first time in my history with Jerome, he ran to me and said, "I want on the show." And when the city manager runs up to you and says that, I feel pretty good about the show going somewhere, and feel like the insight is actually happening. So I'm looking forward to having Jerome on and talking with him and really giving him a platform. I think to get his feet grounded with the citizens of Northport and with everyone being able to learn who the true value of the man is. And I like him a lot. I think he's a grounded guy. He's got a great family, and I think we should give him the respect he damn well deserves.
Get
So
to know him. You will be proud. Get to
at
know
that
him.
point, I've got to end the show. This is John Rawlings with Remax Palm and
Peter
Real
Bartalotta.
Talk Radio 97.5 FM saying thanks. Have a great day and be safe out there. Robin, Chuck, all you guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I appreciate you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.